I can make my office meeting.
That's super sad.
I've never seen them finish that.
How are we doing on this side of the room? Good. Because a lot of times, you know, when the podium's on that side, everybody spends all that time over there. We just forget about you people over here.
We're the outliers.
We did not forget about you.
There we go.
Now, let's discuss this Ready Player One movie versus book. I like the book better, but they're both really good.
Yes, they're good in their own right.
Because they make the challenges completely different.
Because I was wondering when the movie came out, how they were going to tie in the movie properties because of how that all, you know, they put it together. Have you read the new book? Okay.
I need to fix that part.
It's taking it to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, I personally downloaded it, but later.
You know what? I have it downloaded. I started the first few chapters and then I switched books and went to Dune. Because I never saw the first movie and I watched the new movie and it was good, but I felt I was missing some context behind it. And yeah.
What about The Martian? Have you seen The Martian? That's probably, in my opinion, the best book movie
Oh yeah.
of all time.
Yeah. Perfect. How's everybody doing today? Good. I think I'm getting a little bit feedback. Maybe I need to not be so loud. How's everybody doing today? This is my first time in Roanoke. This is my first time at Vista, so I am enjoying it. How about y'all? How many of you, this is your first time at Vista? First timers. How many of you have been here too many times to count? How many of you have not raised your hand yet? All right, there you go, there you go. All right. As stated before, my name is Adam Fayal, and we're going to try something different today. Full disclosure, I'm out of the habit of traveling. I know a lot of you are. And so yesterday, I was at the Hartsfield-Jackson Airport in Atlanta. I was meeting up with Carl. He actually flew from Austin to Atlanta. So we flew on the same plane here. Don't ask me why he did that, but I think he's a cheapskate. And so it was cheaper for him to fly to Atlanta and have a 6-hour layover. So we did that, and we were at the Buffalo Wild Wings, kind of going over our slide deck, get some things together. And I was like, oh, let me add something to my presentation. So I zip open my bag to get my laptop out to add it to there. And then I realized I don't have my laptop. I do have my iPad Pro. So I'm going to see if Apple is really, you can really do everything on your laptop, on your iPad that you can do on your iPad, you can do on your laptop. We're going to test that out today. So this is going to be my first attempt in learning. So I'm going to try to do everything here versus actually having my laptop in hand. So bear with me if there's any technical difficulties. But, you know, we said earlier, this year is all about the pivot, right? If someone tells me to pivot one more time, I'm telling them what they can do with their pivot. But this session is one that is near and dear to my heart, putting the pieces together, because I look at, this is pre-pandemic. I was working on this stuff and we were doing presentations. We've asked our educators to do a lot. We want them to do the whole classroom management thing, make connections with their kids. We want them to use research-based instructional strategies. We start talking about SAMR and TPACK and all this stuff. And it's like, now make it happen. And also we want you to be content creators, create great content for your students, go for it. And a lot of times they're not ready for that. So this whole session is about how to build an environment where teachers can develop that muscle, you know, build that rigor in their classroom and work together as teams to really challenge how we engage students. So I'll give you a little background on putting this together. So that's me with less hair. And This is my coordinator of instructional technology, Dr. Jennifer Williams, and she helped me put all this stuff together. So I wouldn't be able to do my job without my team. And I have to give them a shout out right now because they looked at me side-eyed when I told them I wasn't going to be in district today. We are actually doing our Inspire Her event. And this is something that was near and dear to my heart when I got into my district. I wanted to really focus on getting our girls involved in computer science and technology. And it's one of those things where the numbers tell us they're not involved. Somewhere around 5th, 6th grade, girls don't go into the technology areas. I was at a conference, and this was several years gone by, and they were talking about the number of girls that took the AP computer science exam. And it was staggering, the numbers. And I'm going to do like most presenters when they're on stage, they just make up percentages. But it was something like 5% of girls in certain states were taking the computer science exam. One thing that was staggering, it was, and I won't forget this number, in the state of Mississippi, and this was probably like 2013 data. So this is lagging data that I'm sharing. It was 5 girls of color in the entire state took the exam. And Georgia, we were a little bit better in the state of Georgia, but we weren't quite there. So what we decided to do was, during Computer Science Week, we decided to target our young ladies and focus strictly on them. So we've gotten partnerships with our vendors. And so we're not using any of our tax dollars to pay for this, because someone's freaking out like, what about Title IX? What about the boys? And I said, what about them? See, sometimes we have to do that in education. We have to look at our numbers, we have to look at our data, and we have to help where the help is needed. So the help is needed to get our girls involved. So what we're doing, we have individuals that are coming in, and they are women, they're young ladies in the area of technology, and they are presenting and they are sharing, and our girls doing some awesome things. I know, like right now they're making some binary bracelets where they're doing some things with their names, Brain Pop, Nearpod. We're sharing some really great things with them. They're coding, they're building their own robots, all those things, but it's really exciting. And we did a kickoff last week at one of our schools. And it was one of those moments where, as an educator, you just kind of stop and you're like, oh, the girls were like, this was 5th grade. She's like, oh my gosh, I feel so special. No one's ever done anything like this for me. We got all the girls' shirts. They say Inspire Her. I mean, it was amazing. And I'm just in and out. I don't even try to be there because I'm like, it's all about girl power. I get it. So Jennifer, if y'all ever get a chance to meet Dr. Jennifer Williams, please follow her on social media. She's posting about it today. She has all the energy and excitement. She's in there. You guys, y'all are queens. We're going to be awesome. We're going to be amazing. She does all this stuff. And then I try to she's like, Adam, sit down. I'm like, all right, bye. But I just want to share that this has nothing to do with my presentation, but I do want everyone to understand, when you recognize there are deficiencies or gaps in your instruction or in what you're delivering to your students, you have to step up and fill that gap. Because if you don't, who will? It's one thing to talk about the problem, it's another thing to solve the problem and fix it. And that's what we are empowered to do, and that's why I'm empowering each and every one of you to do. All right, so enough of that. Let me talk about where I'm from. All right, so Newton County Schools, this is a suburb, that's what we call it, outside of Atlanta, because everything in Georgia is based on where Atlanta is. So we're about like 45 minutes from the city. We are known as the Hollywood of the South. Yes, we are. Anybody fan of Vampire Diaries? I never watched it either. There we go, somebody's clapping. Is it like Sweet Magnolias, Steel Magnolias, something? So one of those shows. Dukes of Hazzard. And Dolly Parton movies. Christmas movies on Hallmark. But they do a lot of that filming in my town. So we do have a relationship with the film industry. They do some Marvel movies and things of that nature there. So Robert, we have about 20,000 students in my district. I don't know in Virginia how that sits. Is that a small, medium, large? 20,000, where would that fit? Large, medium, all right. So we're in Tyler County. You see our demographics there. 4% English language learners, but we speak 86 different languages. So while it's a small percentage, it's a lot of different languages there. And 13 receive special ed. Now here's the big number. 68% of our students qualify for free reduced lunch. So with this, it's a few types of poverty. It's more urban, suburban poverty, and it's also rural poverty. And if you've ever worked in impoverished areas, that's two different kinds of poverty, two different kinds of things that you have to deal with. So for example, when you talk about rural poverty, you could be living on 10 acres of land and you're poor. So they had a big old house, but they have well water. So that's the kind of thing that we're dealing with in the district, also with folks who are living in projects. So it's the two differences of things that we have to deal with. So it really hit us during the pandemic when we had to deal with the connectivity and students. So it was people who couldn't afford internet access and people who did not have internet access, where they couldn't even get like satellite or HughesNet or whatever it is in their area because of where they live. We have people who live in swamps in our area. So if that sound like anything that anybody's dealing with? All right. So those are some of the problems that we had. So that's our landscape. So what do we have here? A couple things I want to run through because I'm going to mention it in my session. We actually have cameras in all of our classrooms. Yeah, you heard me. Cameras are in every one of our classrooms. So there's over like 1,500 cameras in our classrooms. Who wants a camera in their classroom? But here's the thing, our teachers want the cameras. Because here's the thing, our teachers, they are the owner of the camera in their classroom. So the principal can't get into the camera, they can't do anything. The camera is used as an instructional piece. So the teachers can record in real time their classroom and they can go back and reflect. So in our coaching model, they use the video to say, hey, watch this video, give me feedback, so on and so forth. It's also used for classroom safety. Initially, we started the launch of the cameras after the incident that happened in Newtown, where we wanted to make sure our classrooms were secure. So all of our teachers with their camera system also have a lapel microphone, and they have like a little button that they can mash on there, and it will send an automatic alert to the front desk and automatically start recording and live streaming that to the front office of what's going on in the classroom. So it's not Big Brother watching, it's a safety piece. And we've had too many situations in the past 8 years that we've launched this initiative where it has saved lives. We had a student that literally flatlined in the classroom, was dead. The teacher didn't know what was going on. The kid just fell out, was not breathing, non-responsive. The nurse looked on the camera and somehow or another, she looked at it and she recognized she needed to grab the Narcan. Y'all know what Narcan is? Took it to the classroom. Kid, once again, was gone, hit him with it, brought him back. We had several teachers who have been accused of things by students. And they're like, oh, no, sirree, Bob, roll that beautiful bean footage. And next thing you know, the story totally changes from the student. Because, you know, a lot of times you get those viral videos of what goes on in the classroom and you only get what the teacher does and you never see what happened before that. Somehow or another, that video doesn't exist. Well, now our teachers have been able to pull that video up and say, hey, here's the whole thing that happened in the classroom. And then we're like, okay, now we see what's going on. So really great resource and tool there. We use Canvas as our learning management system. We've been using that for several years now. So I was so happy that we had launched that prior to the pandemic. So teachers weren't like scrambling, trying to figure things out. We did an organic rollout, so it wasn't required. Now, once the pandemic hit, of course, it was required, but we already had about 80% of our staff already using that. We are a Microsoft at our core, but we have Chromebooks. So it's Microsoft and Google. And people are like, why are you doing both of them? Well, I don't know. We live in a world where there's a lot of choices, right? So my thing is, I wanted our students and teachers to build the muscle to select the right tool for the job, which is about this presentation that we're doing right now. Sometimes Google's the best tool. I love Google for collaboration. They have nailed it with Google Docs, real-time collaboration, Google Slides, all that stuff. But I have never turned in a paper in my collegiate level that they wanted in Google. They wanted a Microsoft Word document. So sometimes I've made things collaboratively in Google, and then I was converted it over to Word and did all the Word stuff that people needed and turned it in there. Or we built out a presentation in Google Slides, got all the information there, and then we like PowerPointed it up to turn it in. Sometimes doing all your data, it makes more sense to do it in Excel. You know, you need all the robust tools that Excel has. Sometimes you just need to make a spreadsheet. Do it in Google Slides, all right, Google Sheets. So we wanted to make sure our teachers and students know what tools we have and how to use them. So those are some big things that we do. All right, so we break everything down. We have this little acronym called SWOT. What do we do for safety? What do we do for work? How do we assess? And how do we teach? Keep it simple, because here's my thing in my district. We have all these wonderful goals and vision statements. How many of you can name all your system's goals? Anybody? Anybody watching at home in another room? No, that's the thing. We have these really great words that we use that confuses the heck out of people, because we've gone to school, we have all these degrees. We got to make sure we put a lot of educational words in our stuff, and no one knows what we do. So what I decided to do is throw all that away. So in technology, we keep it very simple. Our first goal. No, that had nothing to do with this, but good job, Tom. No, we have 4 goals that we use. I don't have it on this slide, but the first one is to know what tools are available and how to use them. Simple, easy. Second goal, use the best instructional strategies with the tools. Use technology to improve communication. Technology is available and works as advertised. Guess what? Everybody in my department knows our goals. Our teachers know the goals. And I tell them, call me out if we're not meeting those goals. And I had teachers will do that. They'll say, Adam, you said it should be available and works as advertised. My internet's not working. Okay, you got me. And so we'll do a better job with that. But it's very simple and easy. So I ask you, if you have goals in your area that you're working with, make them very simple and easy, where you know them, everybody else knows them, and they can call you out on them. Because that's my thing. Hold me accountable. If we're not meeting those goals, you got to let me know and tell me which goal we're not meeting and what we can do better to meet that goal. Because if I can't say my own goals, then how can they hold me accountable? All right. So I wanted to cover that real quick. So all the stuff that I said, we got all this wonderful stuff. We're going to create a technology-rich learning environment, blah, blah, blah. We got Marzano. You may have never heard of this guy. He has this book called Classroom Instruction Networks. Anybody heard of that? Someday people are going to read this book and they're going to make a whole lot of money behind it. But these are top learning strategies that we've been focusing in on in our district. And so our teachers, they know this frontwards and backwards by heart. And then technology, we really try to talk about TPACK. Anybody familiar with TPACK? Yes, no, maybe, sort of, kind of. See a hand, there we go. All right, so with TPACK, you have the whole circle, your content knowledge, technological knowledge, pedagogical knowledge, all these wonderful things. You want to hit that sweet spot where it all makes sense. And then the next piece that we talk about is SAMR. How many people know about SAMR? Give me a hand. Yeah, I see more hands on SAMR now, okay. And SAMR, you have the ladder, you may talk about the SAMR swimming pool, all those fun things with SAMR. And so this is out there as well. So our teachers are like, what do I do? What do I do? Do I do TPACK? Do I do SAMR? Do I use research instructional strategies? And I'm like, I don't know, because they end up looking like this. And this was pre-pandemic. They were looking like this. And so we had a lot of teachers that were stressed out because they wanted to do the right work, but they didn't know what work, because we weren't clear on our message. And that was something that we had to step back and like, okay, we're not clear. Going back to my goals, we're telling all this stuff, but we haven't packaged it together in a clear, easy, digestible format for educators. Because I am a former science teacher. I taught high school science. Any high school science people in the room? Thank you, kinda, I think that was a woo-woo. What subject? I mean, what area of science? Yeah, bio, yep, taught biology, physical science, and chemistry. So fun times. So I've been there and I get it. And what the big thing for me was when I left the classroom, I had to realize that not everybody did what I did. That anybody, because you thought, well, everybody's doing this. And then you get in there, you're like, oh, y'all ain't doing it, huh? No. And sometimes it's a skill. Most times it's a skill. They just have not built that skill. They haven't worked that muscle yet. Sometimes it's will. Those people just don't want to do it. They're going to try to wait it out. But one thing we've learned, you're not going to be able to wait out technology. You're going to fall further and further behind. And at the end of the day, who suffers if those teachers aren't doing what they need to do? The kids, students. And here's something else that I've noticed. Now, this is my high school background, and not my district, other districts. Where are our most talented teachers? What do they normally teach? The honors, your AP courses, things of that nature. Normally, where are your least experienced teachers? Remediation, the collab. They normally are working ninth grade. They're normally working with the students that need the most support and the most help. And then we wonder why ninth grade is our highest level of dropout. I don't know, maybe because we have the worst people teaching. I should say the worst people. But the people who need the most support, we often put them with those students who also need the most support. So it's one of those things where we had to step back and look, what are we doing? Are we setting our students and teachers up for failure? And the answer was, yes, we are. We're setting them for failure because we're not equipping them with the right tools. All right, so what do we do here? Well, hopefully nobody gets seasick from this. We had to really talk about TPACK and unpack what TPACK was for our teachers. And so they could have a clear understanding. Because yes, we showed them the little TPACK and 2-minute video and all that fun stuff, but they didn't really have a clear understanding. And what we found out as we started unpacking TPACK, I'm not going to show a video for you right now. What we realized that what they thought technological knowledge was and what we thought it was were two different things. So they thought also, oh, well, our students get technology. No, they don't. The thing is, the students don't have a fear of technology. We have a fear. Because if you put a new device in front of a bunch of students, they'll open it up and start playing around with it. Because they don't care if they break it. You give it to teachers, they're like, well, I'm not gonna do it. No one's told me to open it up yet. What's my login? They're not gonna touch it. Kids will hop in there and play around and do stuff. Now, it doesn't mean they're doing it right. They'll do something. Just like they get on social media now and post things. They don't get social media. They just don't have a fear of what they're posting, which causes a whole lot of problems. I got in trouble one time in a session at my district because I told them technology is like sex ed. And they're like, oh, well, kids do it all the time. They just don't know how all that stuff works and all the consequences that go along with it. I mean, not too difficult to figure out, but they don't realize the long-term consequences of what they're doing when they do that, or technology. And so it's our job to really give them that education. So we had some conversation around what do we mean when we talk about technological knowledge? And that's going back to what I mentioned earlier in my district, our goals. Do you know what tools are available and how to use them? And then that second piece, are you using the best instructional strategies with that technology? Because we started pulling our usage reports and teachers were using the tools, but they were using them very surface. So like we have brain pop. Are brain pop people in here? Okay, they were showing the videos. That's it. They hadn't gotten to the quizzes. They were just like, oh, I'm just gonna show some videos. Very surface level. So they knew what tool was available. They knew how to use it, kinda, but they didn't go beyond that. So that piece was missing was using the best instructional strategies with that. So figuring out when the quizzes were the best part to use. How to take those videos and assign them out to students. Any discovery streaming, discovery education? I love all their new tools that they've added now. It's amazing. So even with that, they were doing the same thing. They were just showing videos. They just thought it was a repository for videos. They didn't understand all the creation tools behind that. So we had to go back and look at our way of teaching with technological knowledge. All right. So the next piece that we, let's skip that. Next thing that we talked about with our folks was going back to that Marzano piece, that research-based instructional strategies, because that's that piece that also we noticed that they were missing. I know what the tools is, I know how to use the tool, but they couldn't figure out what's the right way, the right strategy. We're doing summarizing and note-taking. What's the best tool to use for summarizing and note-taking? Okay, you can only do so many Kahoots. Oh my gosh, if I say another Kahoot, I'm gonna Kahoot. I mean, that's all our teachers were using. They're like, oh my gosh, have you seen Kahoot? It's so amazing. I love Kahoot. I love Kahoot. Okay, I get it. Kahoot's cool. But what else are you doing? Like, are you doing anything with Nearpod? Because we have Nearpod. You doing anything with Nearpod, guys? What's Nearpod? Well, I don't like using Nearpod. I like my kids to copy the notes. True story, true story. I was in a school, not in my district. A teacher said, she said, Adam, come here. I want you to see what we're doing in my classroom. I was like, sweet, science classroom. She was like, for your science people in the room, you know when you drop the water on a penny to see how many drops? Okay, but they had different liquids. So it was like they were using water, they were using like corn syrup, all these things, you know. And I was like, okay, cool, you know, cool little thing there. We're already 1-to-1 in this school. That's not my district. And what the teacher was doing, I kid you not, projecting on the screen a Google Doc. Notice I'm saying a Google Doc and not a Google Sheet for the kids to put their data in. But what she had the students doing, they got the dry erase marker, came up to the board, wrote their number of drops that they got, and went back to their station and kept working. Once again, it was not in my district, but in another district that I went to, and walked in their classroom, and they told me this. But she was proud of herself. And keep in mind, all the kids had devices. And so I was like, well, what's going to happen? What are you trying to get from this? And she was like, well, I wanted the kids to see how we could use technology in science. And so it was a whole conversation around, okay, you know what technology is available. You know how to use it, kind of. I would pick a different tool for what you're using, but are you using the best strategies with that? And so those are some conversations that we were having there. Now, the last piece, which should be the easiest piece with TPACK that we found out that we struggle with, was content knowledge. And here's the thing, educators, we have to be real with our staff. Not everybody knows what they're teaching. It is what it is. Because I don't know about in Virginia, but I know in Georgia, if you don't have any prior convictions or felonies, you are a prime candidate to be a classroom teacher. Come on in. We're hiring right now. Come on in, we'll take you. And so we have some people in there who have some content issues. And so they could have they're really great heart. They could love the kids. They could know what technology is available. They could have the pedagogy in place, but their content is all out of whack. And that's some things that I've noticed also walking in classrooms. I've seen content delivery, and it's like, that's not the standard. That's not what you're supposed to be teaching, sir. And it's like, how many of you have had that moment where you want to say something? And it's like, okay, I don't want to embarrass this person in front of their kids, but it's like, okay, you're doing malpractice. And that's something also as support folks, because a lot of coaches in here, right? When you're walking in those environments, sometimes you have to step up and say something. Because if you were a doctor and somebody was about to give somebody some medicine that was the wrong medicine, you would say something, right? You don't have to be a doctor. You could be a little kid working in a pharmacy, and the pharmacist was an alcoholic, and he was going to give the kid the wrong medicine and kill them. Like that movie, It's a Wonderful Life. Did anybody catch where I was going with that? No, maybe, sir? Okay, thank you. You know, it is the holiday season. But yeah, sometimes we have to get up and say something. You can't just let it happen and then afterwards you come back, oh, by the way, you actually taught that standard wrong. You did the wrong thing. You have to find a way to, you know, respectfully interrupt and get the person's attention to say something and maybe go in a different direction. But you have to do those things. But we noticed that was also an issue with our staff. So we had to be very clear with our content. So the problem was a lot of our teachers were doing this in islands. They were by themselves doing this instruction. So they didn't have anybody to come back and say, hey, that's not good teaching. So we had to revamp and look at our planning process around the work that we were doing in the classrooms. All right, so these are just the things that we pointed out. So we got the TPACK piece in place. All right, so then we started talking about SAMR. And our teachers wanted them to have a clear understanding that, hey, this is not good, bad, or indifferent. When we looked at SAMR as a way for them to now score their lessons. So TPACK is the piece that we wanted them to utilize in the planning process. So you got your content, you got your strategies, you have your tools. When you put it together, you need to be able to look at this lesson and tell what it is. Is it, okay, this is a good substitution activity. How we're using technology. When I say substitution, go through it, you are using technology just to replace something. So instead of writing your notes down, you're now typing your notes for whatever reason. You know, because I had a teacher, well, my kids don't copy their notes off the board now, they're copying them down in a Google Doc. Why? Because they can remember them. Well, research tells us that they won't, but whatever. You know, maybe everybody who's doing the research is wrong. But the concept was understanding that sometimes though, that substitution helps get you to the next. It's scaffolding the activities. So, but they needed to recognize it was substitution. They needed to recognize that activity that you're doing should build to the next task. So that was a part of the process. So, no, because we had the augmentation piece and the modification. If I need to slow down and go over this, somebody just throw their hands up at me. This is like, you know. And of course, redefinition, which is one of those things that everybody wants to do some redefinition activity. Oh, redefining the teaching and learning. No, you're not. And sometimes that's not the best strategy. You don't need to always try to shoot up to the top and redefine, you know, teaching and learning. And sometimes you need to realize that technology is not needed in your classroom. Walking outside is okay. Going back to that science teacher, they were using droplets and dropping them on a penny or whatever. Now, there's some questions about their level because it's a high school classroom, but whatever. But that was the appropriate tool. They do have technology there. There's a website that has a HTML5 thing that you could virtually add a drop of water on a penny. Yes, but why do that? So we wanted our teachers in this process to see the technology and realize whether or not it made sense to actually do that technology tool. Because just because someone took the time to develop this app or this thing, do you need to use it? It may not make sense to use it. One thing that we focus with our teachers on is reading online. I got into it with our ELA department. They were like, oh, well, books, they're important. Our kids need books. They need to turn the pages, need to smell the books. Because I supervise our library media centers. And so this is a back and forth that I had. And I'm saying, yes, it's important. Like reading Ready Player One or Ready Player Two. It's okay to have a book. But how do all our kids take their standardized test? On a computer, right? And does everyone know that it takes a different process in your brain to read on a screen than it does in a book? And also to use the markup tools, because all the markup tools are the same. It's some kind of highlighter tool, right? There's some kind of like little notes tool where you can make like a little like sticky note in whatever you're reading or whatever. So it's about teaching that skill, not to throw away books, but if you're going to be assessed using digital text, the kids need some practice using that digital text. So that substitution and augmentation piece that goes in there, but then determining where on this SAMR ladder that activity falls. All right, so, and some of y'all may have seen that little wheel before. So what did we ask our teachers to do? We actually use these boxes when they are doing their unit planning. So 3 simple boxes, 3 simple questions you need to ask as you're planning. Technology for learners being used. What technology are you using? What technology are you using? Because what we found out just by asking that simple question, if every time you're putting your lesson together and all the technology ended up with teachers being used, that's a problem. We need to have some technology being used over here. And then we started talking about our 4 C's, okay? What are they doing with said technology? Because prior to this, we had a lesson plan that had a checkbox next to it. It was like technology, check. They would just check technology. We have Promethean boards in all our classrooms. So guess what? I use technology every day. So we were talking about, hey, critical thinking. Are they creating? And what we asked our teachers to do was look back after their unit and see, are you having gaps? Are you never putting anything in creating? If your students are never creating, that's a problem. But here's the thing also. That became a piece that they could talk to our digital learning coaches about. Because they're saying, hey, as a team, we're planning and we're noticing we're not putting anything in creating. Can you help us come up with some strategies where our kids can create with the tools that we have? So they became the conversation between our digital learning coaches and the teachers. It became a richer conversation now because it's not just, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to use Google Sites. It was, how can my students use Google Sites to create? Communication and collaboration. So we go through these, and so now the teachers are looking more critically at their lesson just by adding those boxes there. So then the next piece that we take with our teachers in lesson planning, I'm gonna come back to that video clip in a sec. And some of you may be familiar with the Rigor Relevance Chart. Yes, no, no? So this is where all the magic actually happens. So the SAMR, the Marzano, the TPAD, that's all the background piece that we just had them say, store in your memory banks. Place that there. This is where you start putting all that into action. So we just go in here, take the verbs that are in our state standards. And there's certain verbs that have to be certain places. Then we talk about what you can do with technology with those verbs. So if you want to sequence, okay, you can do a blog. What can you use with a blog? What can you create with a Google Doc? Social media posting. They can create a website with Google Sites. They can construct a Google site. And we also talk about how this flows in SAMR. So they could have an activity. Now here's where the SAMR piece comes in. Oh, I have this really great activity where the kids are going to watch a brain pop video, and then they're going to list all the different types of plants in our state. Okay, great. Where is that on SAMR? And they're like, okay, well, they're watching it and they're copied down, they're making it in the Google Doc. That's probably like a substitution activity. Okay. Great. You can keep it there. But do you want to take it to another level? What could we do? And this is the conversation now that we're having with the teachers. They're like, okay, instead of each kid having their own list, could they pair up with a friend, and then the friend then puts the picture of the plant and they share the document together? That could be cool. And then that would take it over here. But here's the thing. We're not telling them not to do that first activity. So now independently, over here, each kid's creating their list of plants. The next part of that activity is they work with a partner with their shared Google Doc and add the photos of those particular plants and add some more information. Just stepping it up a little bit, adding a little bit more rigor to that process. But ultimately, when they do this planning, and I'm gonna show you an example, we start with the end in mind. So ultimately, we know what we want to do here. So it could be, hey, we're going to use WeVideo, and we're going to create a video about all the various plants, flora and fauna found in the state of Georgia. That's where we ultimately want to get to, based on our standard. But to get here, what can we do in our A quadrant? What we do in our B quadrant and our C quadrant to get us over here? So then they start scaffolding their lessons. They start deciding what tools do we have in the district that's available to get us there. But it's all going back to finding your action verbs in your state standards and defining where those fall. So when you start talking about blooms and all that kind of stuff, you see how this ties all that in together? You're tying in all that rigor, you're tying in your state vocabulary, you're tying in the creation products, and you're really building that out. So let me show you what it looks like in an elementary classroom. I'm gonna go back to that one. I'm gonna show you elementary first. Because this is low tech. This is actually what it looks like when they're planning with our digital learning coaches. So what the teachers will do is they put in their standard, it was a kindergarten standard, 2D and 3D shapes. And so what we had them do to start this off, come up with all the different activities that you could possibly do. Don't even worry about how to do them, just come up with all the activities. They came up with, they're gonna identify the 2D and 3D shapes. They're gonna create a picture using those various shapes. They're gonna make a shape person. They're gonna do a scavenger hunt. They're gonna do a shape town digital story. So these are all, and some of these are tech, some of them are not tech. So they came up with all these various activities that they would do to teach. So once again, going back to our Marzano strategies. So what pedagogical things are you using? You already got your content here. We haven't got to the technology piece yet. They're just coming up with what they would do to teach. And so now we do backwards design. Ultimately, what do you want them to be able to do? Up here, they said, okay, the hardest one is their Shape Town digital story. And I was like, well, what's the Shape Town digital story? Well, we thought it'd be really cool. They were like one of those little like friendly kids videos where like if somebody's like, hi, I'm a circle and I do this and that, I'm a square, I have 4 sides, I have angles. And that's what they wanted to do. But they wanted the kindergarten kids to do it. So how can we get there? Backwards design now. We have all these things in place. What activities can we do to get us there? Well, they started off constructing shapes out of craft sticks. You know, using little popsicle sticks and building some shapes and doing some things. And somebody's like, well, there's a really cool website that'll let you do that. Okay, you can do that too. The teacher was like, well, I don't have any money. I'm not going to buy any sticks. I'm tired of buying things. Okay, here's a website. But here's also what happened. Now that the teachers came up with this stuff, when they're working with our digital learning coaches, they can start having conversations about what technology tools that we have that will help you achieve that goal. Totally changes our interaction and conversation now. It's no longer, I don't know how to use BrainPop. I don't know how to share something in my OneDrive. We're not teaching how to necessarily use a tool. We're teaching how to use a tool within the context of instruction. So this one down here, they wanted to build shape people. What can you use to build shape people? Anybody, just shout it out. Play-Doh, paper, wooden blocks, Legos, anything. Do they also have websites you can use too? Yeah. Like I think Braining Camp. Anybody familiar with that website? Yep. That really great resource there. So then we could pull that up. There's like dance, sing songs, but once again, these are all basic activities here. So now to get here, they're going to interview a shape. So each kid was a shape and had a list of things. Now to interview a shape, they had to do this stuff over here. Because there's like this activity like identify vocabulary. So the different characteristics of the shapes. So now I have this document that has my characteristics of shapes. I may have watched the Brain Pop video. I may have watched something on Discovery Education, vocabulary, whatever we did here is going to get us over here where the kids are going to interview each other. And in our kindergarten classroom, they have their one-to-one iPads. So the kids use their iPads and they use the Clips app and they interviewed each other. And the kids had a lot of fun because they built out their whole memoji. You know, the memojis where you got the big face little things and you can put that on the overlay. And so now you don't see me, you see my memoji. So the kids love that. And now also we got around kids that didn't want their picture taken or video recorded because it's not you, it's your memoji and you're talking. Building charts, ultimately getting up here, they're constructing new shapes from existing shapes to get us to our last activity, which is, like I said, making a podcast about shapes, doing creating their own digital scavenger hunt for shapes. Now, all this, they're using products that they've created in these other steps to get them to that top one. Now, how many of you think a teacher planned this all by themselves? No. This is now a team plan. So those people that we talked about that had the content issues, hey, we got you covered. The people who said they didn't understand what tools that we had, I didn't know we had that, we take care of that with this. And what we found now is our digital learning coach in my district, and that would be the equivalent to your NCIS. They now have a different relationship and conversation with those teachers now. Because I noticed they were getting to the point where they were getting tired of working with them. Like, oh my gosh, every time I come in there, they're like, they don't know how to use anything. And I'm like, well, you got to do it better. And I found myself as their director telling them, we just do a better job. And then I had to check myself. I'm like, I'm just telling them to do better. And they're telling the teachers to do better, but none of us are doing any better. And like I said earlier, when you see somebody doing something wrong, it's on you to make that correction. It's on you to notice what's there and take steps. And so we've been able to do this and make some gains. I'm gonna go back to a secondary version of this. So this is one for physical science. And so the standard is to obtain, evaluate, and communicate information to explain the differences between physical and chemical changes. Substandards, plan and carry out investigations of physical changes by manipulating, separating, and mixing liquid and materials. Constructed argument based on observations. So see how these standards actually really do stuff? So my thing is, if you're not having your kids like create, then how are you really teaching your standards? Now we start off here where the kids are watching a video about physical and chemical changes. They're going to construct an argument and they're going to defend their findings. They're using OneNote to keep their thoughts organized. They're using the Clips app to plan and carry out an investigation. They're videoing physical changes. They have 5 slides. They got to support their claims. And notice like the stuff that they're doing, they change the color of the font. And that's pulling out from their words that they're supposed to be using here, their action verbs and things they're supposed to be doing in the standard. They're going to construct arguments and support their claims in the last step. So you can't construct an argument and support your claim down here, right? You got to build some background knowledge to get you up here. So do you think we are doing a substitution up here? Could you possibly substitute when you're up here, when you're trying to hit the big part of that standard? It's very difficult to do that up here, utilizing technology. More than likely, you're going to be doing that whole teaching above the line in SAMR. You're going to be doing your modification and redefinition when you are really teaching, when you're hitting your C and D block, that's really where you're going to be hitting that modification and redefinition as it relates to using technology. One of the things that we did here, and we did this more for the, any principals in the room? Good, I can talk about them. One of the reasons why we color coded the words are for our administrators. So they can easily see that it's not just fluff the teachers are doing. No. See, the kids, they're supposed to observe. See, it's right there in red. Now, true story, it was one problem because one of our principals was colorblind. So, get you that. And so he was like, I don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, he had it was a red-green thing, so it was throwing him off. So their school just started underlining their stuff for him. But does this look like something that's fairly simple and easy to do? And they did this together as a team. So by working together as a team and putting this together, it made it a whole lot easier and digestible. And guess what the teachers are going to do next year? Yeah, they're going to refine this. They're going to add to it. So now this may be bullet 1, bullet 2, and just start adding to it. So now as a teacher, you can pick which activities you choose to do utilizing the tools, or our tools may change. We may no longer pay for Brain Pop anymore as a district. So we'll just plug out Brain Pop and put in whatever else tool we have. But now it's easier to use. So I'm winding down. I'm gonna tell you a couple of things really quick. I am honest to my detriment. So are all of our schools doing this? No, they're not. Are our schools that are doing this seeing teachers love it? Yeah. And getting back to my principal piece, some of them, they're like, well, this is too much for my teachers. They're stressed out. It's like they're stressed out because you're teaching everything in segments and they don't know what to do. So what we're trying to do, we've been doing this for a couple of years now. We're trying to now show with our teachers that are doing it at schools, we're getting there and we're recording little videos of them. Oh my gosh, I love it. The kids are loving the activities. So we're trying to make it known so those other principals don't have a choice, but to try it out with a team. So that's what we're doing now. We're like, hey, how about you let us try it out with your 4th grade? How about let us just try this out with your science? Because y'all don't care about elementary science, so let's work with elementary science then. So we're trying to pick those areas to play with and do this. And one thing we've also noticed with this, if you ever want to try this method, don't do it with something that the teachers love teaching. Because they were like, I already have all my stuff. I know how to teach this. Find something that you notice based on your state scores, they struggle teaching. If it's something that they struggle with, here's the trick. It can only get better. Like, they're already struggling teaching this one standard. I mean, what's it gonna do, get worse? It's like you're already down here with your test scores on this one particular area. I mean, it's only gonna get a little bit better anyway. So find something that's been challenging for your teachers to teach as you're working with this whole process, and I guarantee you will see some positive results and feedback, and the instructional team will definitely love the conversation that they will start having now with their teachers, and they also will be more involved in that academic teaching and learning process. And that's what I've noticed with my digital learning coaches, that they know more about the standards now, working with this format, because they're now having those real conversations about moving the kids along and getting them there. And they're coming to school they're working the next day. Oh my gosh, Adam, I was driving home and I had a great idea about how okay, don't tell me, tell those teachers. But they're more involved in this process now versus just teaching them how to use a tool or where this thing is located. So I kind of want to go through that. My time is running out on this. We do a whole series of this in my district. And I work with some other districts with this, but I just wanted to share this information with you. Hopefully you're able to take some of this with you, and I'm going to share all this stuff on my Twitter. This is a Prezi, so I'll share the link out. You can play through it. There's some live documents at the end, a couple of templates you can have and do all that with it. But thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you enjoy the rest of your day. I have a 1 o'clock, I think, in Crystal. Sounds right? Is that a room? Did I just make that up? Yes. Okay, I got a thumbs up, so I think it actually is a room. I was just throwing out a name and see what stuck, and that one stuck. So yeah, great job. Bye. Twitter handle. Twitter handle is Ask Adam, the number 3. Ask Adam number 3. Follow me on the Twitters at